I'm Chase Perrotta. I'm a student over at Cooper City High School, and you're about to watch a documentary that I made about some really cool people you've probably never heard of. So I hope you watch it, and I hope you enjoy it.
Shortcuts. Documentary.
Chess has been a laboratory for artificial intelligence since artificial intelligence started as a science.
Chess is a hard problem, not just for computers, but for people. People can spend their whole lives learning, improving, and still be far from perfect. So chess is intrinsically a very hard game.
64 squares, 2 colors, 32 chessmen, very easy rules of how things work and move and what to do, what not to do. And yet the complexity that emerges from those easy rules and from those simple pieces and squares, etc., is overwhelming.
The early programs were quite primitive. They didn't take us very far because computers think so differently, especially then, from the human mind.
Well, we thought that the humans had some talents that you couldn't program. In particular, some crazy idea that there was something known as intuition that couldn't be programmed onto a computer.
I first got interested in building a chess computer when I was in high school. But I visited the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada, and saw a computer in a lab playing chess. And I thought that would be a fantastic research project, particularly because I could beat that computer very easily. And then when I went to get my PhD at Carnegie Mellon University, a group of students decided to get together and build a world-class chess machine. And it was the first machine to beat a grandmaster in tournament play. Following that, IBM noticed us and decided to hire a group of us to build the next generation of chess machine, which eventually became known as Deep Blue.
Deep Blue was a supercomputer. It was a program running on a monster called an RS-6000.
There were roughly 500 chess accelerator chips, all working together, searching about 120 million chess positions per second.
You know, it was a lot of technology to produce chess moves.
The motivation to build Deep Blue was very clear. There was a target. The target was world chess champion Garry Kasparov.
First of all, there's only one Garry Kasparov. I mean, he's a genius, and he's one of the smartest individuals on the planet. Quite possibly the greatest chess player of all time. And
so we needed to do what it took to build a chess machine that was good enough to play against him on at least an equal footing. And he was willing to take on the challenge of playing a computer when we thought we were ready.
IBM had hired some grandmasters to help them with their openings book.
Well, I'm Joel Benjamin. I was an international grandmaster, but they brought me on as the chess consultant, and I just worked on training Deep Blue.
And we were pretty convinced that it was much stronger because it was relatively easily beating the grandmasters that we brought in to test Deep Blue. The press around the Deep Blue match was crazy. I never imagined I'd be involved in something like that.
And it was a big spectacle. It was front page news. I mean, everyone followed it.
Having reporters chase you down the halls of your hotel trying to ask you questions was not something that I've seen before or since.
You have to consider that these guys were working on this project for years. It's kind of like what they do every day. But I imagine that as we got closer and closer to actually playing, it was like, oh my God, this is happening.
The 1997 match was very intense. Kasparov won the first game, but not easily. It was a very complicated position, and he had to play extremely well to win. We felt that if the match proceeded like that with complex positions, Deep Blue's strengths would eventually show themselves, and they did. In the second game, Deep Blue played extremely well, and even though it made a couple of mistakes, it was enough to win the game against Chase Perrotta.
I mentioned game 2, which was undoubtedly the most important game of the match, not just because we won it, but because that game lasted for Kasparov the rest of the way. He couldn't get it out of his head. And he thought that it was possible to just simply understand why a computer plays every move it does. And the thing is, we program the thing, and sometimes we're not entirely sure why it played a move. So he wanted to do something that was not possible. He didn't want to just beat it. He wanted to beat it by figuring it out.
The next 3 games in the match were all very tough, hard-fought games, all ending in draws. So going into the last game of the match, it was very tense. Whoever won the last game would win the match.
All the marbles were on the table, so to speak.
We were expecting a draw. There'd been 3 draws in a row up to that point. And so we were saying, well, probably another draw, and it would be a tied match. And for reasons I've never seen fully explained, Garry Kasparov decided to play a very risky line of play where it could go either way. He could win, in great style, or he could lose horribly. And Deep Blue happened to play that particular opening extremely well. When he realized that it wasn't going his way, things weren't working out very well, he was clearly disgusted with the way the game had gone.
He was stressed. I would say he was broken. He was psychologically broken.
It was a lot of pressure. Imagine, he was against the computer with a lot of all the press and all the world thinking about, hey, you have to beat the machine, this idea that Skynet is gonna come and gonna kill us all, right? It was a lot of pressure. So if he actually made that mistake, it's totally understandable. I mean, we're humans, and it's difficult to cope with so much pressure.
Whoa! Kasparov has resigned.
He resigned on move 19, which was, as far as I know, the shortest loss in his career.
At that point, I'll reiterate, he was the better player, but he did himself in. Players do a head trip on themselves sometimes. And Deep Blue can't have a head trip.
He was, of course, not happy about it. We had been working on this for many, many years, and of course, we were elated.
It was shocking. It was also inspiring. In a way, I was rooting for Kasparov, but a part of me was also, rooting for the scientists and technicians who had developed this amazing creature, in a way.
So it's often portrayed as man versus machine in matches like Deep Blue Kasparov. I think that's a bit of a red herring. When you look at it objectively, the machine didn't come from nothing. It was built by people who designed it carefully and programmed it to perform extremely well at a particular task.
We would phrase it as man the performer versus man the tool maker. And we weren't thinking of ourselves as a machine, we were just people, doing a job.
Looking back on the whole arc from when I was in high school, seeing this computer play terrible chess in a backroom lab, through to the final triumph of Deep Blue over Kasparov, it was a lifetime goal. It took almost 20 years, but I got there.
You guys now are the future, and you'll have the opportunity to work with all these new devices and new ways to look at how the brain works. And to do it through chess, it's just wonderful. So I just encourage all of you to go for it.